In this Nightreign video, we're going to be taking a look at Revenant. I'm going to be showing you guys a run through of my Revenant gameplay, how I play Revenant when I'm playing, in an attempt to kind of help you guys make better decisions about what to pick when playing Revenant. I will say that Revenant is a much harder class to make decisions about equipment-wise, simply because there is a lot of flexibility in terms of the things that she's going to get, so it can be quite hard to know what to pick when you're playing her. So before we get into the run itself, I just want to go through like weapon priority and a couple of tips. And the first thing I want to mention is that Revenant's starting weapon is quite weak. You do not want to build around this weapon. You want to replace it with something else. Knowing what good weapons are comes with experience from playing this game, playing other classes, so you get an idea, or even just playing Elden Ring. So you get an idea like what weapons can do, how fast they attack, what their skills are, things like that. So I definitely try and swap out the starting weapon, and I do not build around it at all. So when it comes to weapon priorities, as I mentioned a second ago, it's very difficult on Revenant to always make the perfect decision in every scenario. The game tends to throw a wide selection of weapons at you when you're playing Revenant, and there are a lot of different weapons that you can use. But generally speaking, what I do is I ask myself, is it a seal or melee weapon? That's the first question, and I try and prioritize seals over melee weapons unless the spells are bad on it or unless the melee weapon is very good. And some examples of good weapons are anything that attacks quickly one-handed, like a straight sword or curved sword. Even claws, if they bleed on it, can be good. Or, you know, anything that's got good reach, like if it's a long weapon or something like that, that keep you a little bit safer or has some other status effect like frost on it. So it's not always an exact science. If the seal is about the same as the weapon, I take the seal. But if the seal has better spells, I take the seal. If the weapon is better and the seal has bad spells, I take the weapon. The next question I ask myself, even if it's a good seal, is do I have the spells on this seal, yes or no? If I already have them, there's no point in taking it again, so I will prioritize a weapon or some other buff if there are only spells available that I already have. The next question is, does it have Scarlet Rot? This kind of factors into the priority. If you have a melee weapon with Scarlet Rot and a seal with good spells, I sometimes lean towards the spell if I'm playing with randoms like that, because sometimes I just never know when I'm going to get to another church or something where I can get some spells, and sometimes randoms don't help you, prioritize things that gear that up. But if you're playing in a group and you know you're going to be hitting some places later where you're likely to get spells, I would prioritize Scarlet Rot. It's very rare to get two seals in one reward, so it's not very often is it a choice of which seal am I picking, but in the case that it is, you're obviously going to take a look at what are the spells versus the spells of the other weapon, and what boss are you facing, and does the element match that boss? For instance, is that boss weak to holy? Then the holy spell is probably better as long as it's a good holy spell. Or is it weak to fire or lightning? If the lightning spells are better, then obviously that's what you want to choose. A lot of the bosses in this game have a high resistance to one element or another. For instance, like Tricephalos has 50% fire resistance, which means if you use fire spells against him, you're not going to be dealing a lot of damage. But he has a minus 35% resistance to holy damage, so you're going to do way more damage even if it's just an average spell. So factor these things in when choosing, between two seals. And the last thing I take a look at is the passive effect. What am I getting from the passive effect? You want to look for things that increase incantation damage or charged incantation damage, because you tend to charge your incantations more than not, simply because it's more damage usually and it's more FP efficient that way. You don't have a way to replenish FP like the Recluse does. So generally you're charging your spells in order to be as efficient as possible with your FP. Other things to look for are FP spell reduction cost, so that you can cast your spells more easily without running out of FP. This is probably one of the most important ones, if not the most important one, when you're playing Revenant, simply because you can cast way more spells if you can get that cost down. And lastly, I look for FP back when you're attacking. Obviously, if you can get Glint Blades or something, that's really good too, but FP back when attacking is fantastic, especially if you have a fast attacking weapon like a dagger or an axe or straight sword or something, where you can get, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 FP back very, very quickly, and then you can fling a spell or a couple of spells afterward. Because you do melee a lot when you're playing Revenant, particularly if you don't get given any good spells. You're going to spend some time meleeing compared to Recluse, who hardly ever melees. So when it comes to relics on Revenant, I favor probably health above just about everything, and that's because you do have to melee on Revenant, particularly if you have bad RNG. And if you don't prioritize health when you're playing Revenant and you get bad RNG, you're going to have a really hard time. It may happen that you get perfect spells and you don't need the health at all because you can stand back away in range, but I find that it seems like every other run that's just not the case. And if you get the relic that gives you max health increase, this is actually 100 health, which is about the equivalent of 5 vigor, so that's really strong. This also comes with the ability to heal allies with your flasks, which not only applies to your teammates, which you are kind of a support character with Revenant. You can obviously deal damage as well. But this will also heal like your Sebastian or your Frederick if they're out, or your Helen, in order to help keep them alive. A lot of times when Sebastian grabs aggro, he'll be taking the brunt of attacks, and I'll keep chugging potions in order to keep him alive so we can just keep ranging him down, and that works really effectively because of that. This also allows items to apply to not only your summons, but also allies, which can be very effective if you have like a lot of consumables. Other things to look out for: Ghost Flame Explosion. This is pretty much a must-have for me, and I would sacrifice health in order to get this because it allows you to use your ultimate offensively as well as defensively, which I think is probably the only character in the game that can do this pretty much. Like, obviously, other characters can interrupt, like Wilder can use his ultimate to interrupt a boss that works defensively to protect himself, or they can, you know, iframe through defensively. But what you can do with this is you can run into a pack of enemies or like a group of bosses, AoE them, and then do a lot of damage with your explosion, and then you can go to town for like 15 seconds, your whole team, without having to heal or worry about anything. And I really like that. Like, just being able to use it offensively sometimes when you know the enemy isn't going to kill you guys and you just need to get some burst damage. I like having the burst from it. I also like Powered Up when family is out. I don't have this on my relics simply because I don't have a good combination of relics or the best combination, but this is really good. This will increase your damage by about 10 to 12%, I think. All types of damage as long as you have a summons out. So this can be really strong. The only downside is like if your summons keep dying in like a tough fight, then you won't get the buff. Next thing is Powered Up allies when you use your ultimate. If you're like me and you like to spam your ultimate very often, this can be a good one to get. I don't have it in my relics because it's kind of lower down on the priority list, but it would be very good to have if you like to use your ultimate aggressively like I do. Next is ultimate gain from defeating enemies. This allows you to use your ultimate much more often, and if you use it offensively with Ghost Flame Explosion, you can run in, explode into a bunch of enemies, build up some ultimate quickly, burst down a boss, and then hopefully, you know, have it close to being charged for the next one. It works really well. I also really like post-damage health recovery, like after you take damage when you attack, you can get it back. This plays really well into the aggressive nature that I play with, and it can save you some health flasks as well on Revenant, so it's a good way to be able to get health back easily. A couple other ones you can look for: defeating enemies heals allies but not self. This will heal your summons in my testing, so it can be a good way to heal your allies. It doesn't really work in boss fights, so it's not super important to have, but if you know you got it on a relic that had a couple of other of these things, it wouldn't be that bad. And then lastly, something really important to mention is that you can pick incantation types. There are a couple of regular incantations that you'll get. You'll get Black Flame a lot of the time. You'll get Lightning Spear a lot of the time. So Dragon Cold incantations or Godslayer incantations, if you can find relics with buffs to those, you can actually stack this up to 3 times on 3 relics, and you'll get about a 42% increase of damage, I think, something like that, if you had it on all 3 with that spell type. And there are a lot of lightning spells in this game that'll benefit from that are Dragon Cold, and there are less Black Flame spells, but you do get Black Flame quite regularly. So you could do it on those if you want, in order to really boost your spell damage, but you might have to sacrifice some of these other things to do that, and I wouldn't recommend doing that. I like being tanky when I'm playing Revenant in order to be able to stay alive and be able to get into melee range, and if you sacrifice some of that in order to be able to do spell damage and bank on certain spells, it might not work out. But if you can find these on relics that have these things, that would be amazing. Okay, so on to the run itself. I'm on Revenant, Vex is maining Recluse as usual, and we have a random Iron Eye in our group. So as we fly in, we realize we have the city map, which is not always the greatest map for trying to take on bosses because the city can really disrupt your flow. There is no center keep, which is usually a guaranteed talisman and usually a pretty good reward from the boss there. But we have a pretty good run nonetheless. So after pinning the nearby Great Church, we drop down, wipe out the enemies there really quickly, find the nearest site of grace, and get to level 2 ASAP as is usual. Once we get to the Great Church, I drop my Frederick. As soon as we get there, I climb up top in order to get the chest up there, defeat the enemies. And luckily I end up looting a hammer from it that reduces spell FP cost by 20%, which is huge to get right away. I also managed to get a stone sword key from the chest so that we can do an Everjail later in our run. So immediately following that, I drop down to check out what the reward is from defeating the boss, and it's either a Mantis Blade or Bloodhound Claws that have FP restoration upon attacks. I quickly grab that, not only because of the bleed buildup, but the restoration of FP can be really good for regaining your FP mid-fights. So after this, we head to a nearby Everjail. Fex has a stone sword key, so she opens it before I get there, and it ends up being Crystallions, which isn't exactly the greatest boss for this setup, because we don't have any like really big bonk weapons that can break their stance easily. I try and use the hammer I have, even though I don't meet the requirements yet because I'm not level 7. It's not very effective, so I switch back to the claws. So luckily, I'm able to stance break one of the Crystallions not long after this, and then we burst it down, and luckily enough, it resummons thanks to my passive ability, which you'll see will come in handy later on in this fight. So after this, the Red Wolf is locked onto me, he hits me a couple times, I'm about to die, I got another Crystallion behind me, I quickly get Sebastian out, and then I ultimate to prevent myself from dying and maybe do a little AoE damage, hopefully to the Crystallions, and maybe if I'm lucky, the Red Wolf. But you'll notice after I ultimate that I don't spend any time healing or anything like that. I'm at 1 HP, I'm immortal for 15 seconds. I take advantage of it by unloading into the nearby Crystallion, trying to do as much damage as I can. And then just as my ultimate is starting to wear off, I go ahead and chug a couple of potions in order to heal back up in the thick of everything going on, which is absolute chaos. And while I'm potioning, you may not have caught it, but the Crystallion that is my ghost, which is also immortal because of my ultimate, is laying into the Red Wolf, just taking chunks off his health bar. And not long after this, his Crystal Barrage actually just completely wipes out the Red Wolf, and it goes down easy, like bailing us out of this fight. So after defeating the Red Wolf, I quickly locate the other Crystallion. It looks like Fex is handling it just fine one-on-one, so I go ahead and loot. And I'm really torn here between the Godslayer Seal that's got Swarm of Flies on it and Black Flame because I need some spells, I don't have any yet, and the Lightning Rotten Great Axe because rotten weapons are just so strong. But I've had a bad couple of runs where I haven't gotten any spells, really. Like, before this we were playing, I didn't get any spells, so I'm kind of like a little gun-shy. And I decided to take the spells that I like while I can see them, passing up the Rotten Great Axe. I'm not sure I would always make that decision, especially if we had another melee character that could make more use of it. But it's very unlikely that our Recluse and our Iron Eye are going to use it, and I didn't really want to use it. So after that, we finish off the Crystallion, and I summon Helen a little bit late. I really didn't even need to summon her there, but I decided to do it anyway. I'm trying to get in the habit of summoning all the time so I never forget. And my reward choices are improved stamina recovery or extra runes. I take stamina recovery because you do melee and cast spells, and they do take away a lot of stamina, and I think that's a better reward than 10,000 runes. So then I'll quickly level up a couple levels since we defeated 2 boss, and then we head to the nearby camp. So the bosses in this camp are Banished Knights, so they're spread out. I get to one all by myself. I accidentally summoned Frederick when I meant to summon Sebastian, so I quickly changed that. Sebastian is really, really good when you're facing things one-on-one because he can get aggro and hold it on him while you fight the enemy, whereas Frederick doesn't always gain aggro. He's great for interrupting and damage, but I find that Sebastian is just better in one-on-one scenarios. So after Fex quickly meteors down that boss, I'm running around trying to find the other Banished Knights. I can't remember where they are in this fort. Everything looks the same. Fex points them out. So we head over to them. I quickly summon Sebastian really quickly. Then I run in an ultimate to deal some damage to them really quickly and to get Sebastian to ult into them. And then I just start attacking even though I'm at 0 health because I know I can't die for 15 seconds. We managed to pop both marks from the Iron Eye, and these guys just melt like butter. So for rewards, I was really torn on this one. There are 3 really good options. The Godslayer Seal, I already have Black Flame, so I was looking at Blessing's Boon in order to potentially heal everything around me, to give it a heal over time, which could be really strong. The Cold Pike has cold on it. It's really long-reaching. I really like long melee weapons when you're squishy. So I was debating between that, and also the physical damage negation is not bad if you play your Revenant the way I do, which is I kind of play melee focused when I get given melee weapons and ranged when I get good range, and sometimes you never know how it's going. So far in this run, it's mostly melee, so I almost wanted to take that and decided to go with the Pike here, but you probably could have gone any direction with these and been fine. So then after getting my reward, I kill another enemy nearby that's blocking the Site of Grace from being active. Once it's active, I level up to level 6 and then head over to a nearby church in order to get our first flask. So then we bounce up to another Everjail. I have a key for it. I summon Frederick before I open it, so he's already out. Then I start launching Black Flame into the Crucible Knight because they're weak to fire. You'll notice I actually heal Frederick with one of my potions because of one of the relics I'm using to make sure he doesn't die. He wasn't really that close to dying, but I like using this relic so I can keep my allies alive so that they can keep tanking in a lot of scenarios, which is good for us. And then for the reward, I take the runes there in order to get another level. The sudden death one is nice, but it doesn't trigger all the time, and it's not going to help you in the end of day bosses, which is where, you know, you typically die on a run. We then head over to the nearby Great Church and wipe out the holy enemies there. My ultimate, unfortunately, wasn't quite off cooldown by the time we got there. It was mid-fight, but I didn't want to waste it. So we downed them pretty quickly after I got Frederick out. My options are a Scythe or a Seal that has a pretty good lightning spell on it. We're facing Tricephalos in this run, who isn't like weak to lightning, but he doesn't really resist lightning, so I figured I might use that if I don't have anything better. The spell is pretty good, pretty high damage. We then head over to the nearby Lion, and I get Frederick out quickly, and then I start launching Swarm of Flies into the boss in order to deal damage and to trigger Hemorrhage. And he just is getting staggered by this spell over and over between that and Frederick pounding on him. And he just goes down really, really quickly, especially when Vex starts for Meteor Barrage at the end. So for rewards, I had a choice of a Dragon Halberd, a Poison Scythe, or more Stamina Recovery. I take the Stamina Recovery because the other two aren't specifically useful. I also have decent melee weapons already, so I'm not really looking for more at the moment. We then decide to head to a nearby mine before the Nightreign comes. We're actually heading to the far end and backtracking in order to be going the right direction. Vex notifies me there's a bell-bearing hunter for the boss there. We wanted to see what it was while I'm mid-flight, so I just nope out of there and get into the mine as quickly as possible because I really don't want to fight that guy. So once inside the mine, we get to the Pumpkinhead boss. I summon Frederick quickly, then I start launching Swarm of Flies into them. I probably don't need to summon him at this point. One of the things, though, is I always try and get in the habit of summoning my guy as soon as I can when I get to a boss fight or somewhere where I need one. That way, I'm like building muscle memory. And even if I don't really need it, it keeps that muscle memory there so I don't forget to do it. Then I grab my smithing stone and head out of the mine. Then we quickly head to a nearby fort and I run up, and as soon as I get there I summon Frederick quickly, and then I ultimate to AoE some of the little trash mobs down and knock down the boss, and then we kill him really quickly. And I actually forget to loot the reward from this guy. With the Nightreign coming in, I was in such a hurry that I didn't even think about it between the chest and getting the Sight of Grace open so I could get my FP back. And Vex mentioned that there was a boss somewhere out over in this area where she put her green pin. So I'm quickly making my way out there. I finally find the Black Knife Assassin. And once I get there, I summon Frederick quickly before I start throwing Black Flame into this guy. This guy can't bleed as far as I know, so I didn't use the Swarm of Flies on him. I actually managed to connect with a few Black Flame, which is kind of surprising considering how fast this guy moves. And for reward, I pick up a shield that's got sorcery damage on it, so I drop that for Vex. Then we head to another encampment thinking we might have just enough time to get there. When I get there, I quickly summon Sebastian, hoping that he will tank some of these guys for me. My ultimate isn't quite full yet, unfortunately. It would have been the perfect time to ult. So I'm fighting around Sebastian, waiting for them to show up, just trying to deal damage where I can, cast spells melee when possible. We get a couple kills, so I get my ult, and I quickly use it to keep Sebastian and I alive and to deal some damage. We finish off the boss and clean up the ads very quickly thereafter. So for rewards, we have a Clawmark Seal with Bestial Sling and Borealis' Mist on it that improves lightning attack power. The lightning attack power is probably the best thing about this, but I'm not sure what I'm going to be using on the final boss yet. It's weak to holy, so I'm still holding out for some holy spells. I don't need the Tree Spear, and so I decided to take the improved affinity attack power for magic, fire, lightning, and holy affinities, since this benefits like any of my spells, basically. We then head to the nearby end of day area. I get Frederick out when I get there, so he's ready when this fight starts. And then I start meleeing. I'm trying to conserve my FP for the actual boss fight itself. I do have some ways to get FP back here with the claws if I need, but it's not a lot of FP that I get back, so I'm just kind of nailing these down. And you can see the relic that I have that regains health after you take damage if you attack is doing work for me. Like, I'm getting hit, but I'm just kind of shrugging it off and healing up anyway. And that allows you to play a little bit more aggressively when you're playing Revenant, which is one of the reasons I really like it. So once the bosses spawn, I ultimate right away in order to deal damage to both of them, and then trigger my allies' ultimate where he like spins around and attacks in them. I like to play Revenant very aggressively, so I lead off fights like this, counting on that I'm going to charge it up over time. This is another fight where the boss summons ads, so every one of these ads that dies is going to charge up my ultimate. I then start dropping Swarm of Flies into the Demi-Human Queen in order to deal damage and trigger Hemorrhage. I'm not even worried about healing at this point. Eventually the ultimate wears off and I pop a potion in order to get myself back up to close to full health. The fight kind of slows down at this point. We had pretty good burst, but the damage starts to drop off. I'm kind of doing a mix of melee and ranged spells, Swarm of Flies, as time allows. The boss is moving around a lot, so I'm having a hard time hitting it. I think our Iron Eye was predominantly trying to take care of the ads because I don't see a lot of shots going into the boss, or maybe he was on the Swordmaster. But it starts to slow down a bit here. So unfortunately, not long before the bosses die, Fex gets grabbed by the Demi-Human Queen, which drains her entire health bar. But it does give us a good opportunity to attack into the Queen because she's kind of just immobile while she's doing this. And between the Iron Eye and myself, we're able to pick her up really quickly in the thick of it. So not too long after this, we managed to down them. Even though the fight took a little bit longer than you would typically have, it still wasn't really in any danger of losing it. Of course, this is a pretty easy boss. And when it comes to rewards, I was looking at them. Not all these are pretty good, really. I mean, creating low ground when you're low HP happens to me all the time. Blood loss happens if I'm using claws. But FP restoration on successive attacks is really, really strong on Revenant because she can regain her FP by attacking melee and then go back to throwing spells and then get in melee. And as the boss is on top of her, it's hard to cast spells sometimes, because usually bosses are like jumping between people aggro-wise. But she can melee in those cases, getting FP back, so then when it's not on her, she can cast more, which is nice. So as day 2 begins, Fex is headed back to the encampment that we ran by earlier that has a very good vendor there in order to buy Lusat's staff that has Rain of Stars on it. And I decide that I'm going to take the Skyway over to some of the bosses on the left. After a little deliberation, we figured out that's probably our best move. So I hop on the Skyway and I ping the closest boss. But then I remember it was that Bell-Bearing Hunter we noped the fuck out of earlier. Decide not to drop on top of that all by myself and make my way over to the next boss. But there's a rise right there. So I go in, pick up some Starlight Shards inside. This is a great place to go if you're a Revenant, by the way. There's always Starlight Shards inside rises, and this can just help you in fights regain FP easily. Go up to the top there to get my reward not long after that. So for rewards at the top of the rise, the Rotten Crystal Staff isn't particularly good for Fex. She just bought one. The Magic War Pick isn't particularly useful. I have good melee, and the Lightning Scorpion Chime is really the only choice I have. I'm still looking for some holy spells to use against the last boss because it's weak to holy, but if not, I'm going to end up using lightning, so I grab it. So after the rise is completed, I was kind of killing time hoping that they would catch up while I was doing the rise in order to take on the Draconic Tree Sentinel nearby, but they're not quite there. Fex isn't too far behind, so I engage him. I summon Sebastian, who does quite a bit of tanking for me. You can see he keeps interrupting the Draconic Tree Sentinel, preventing a lot of damage while I'm dropping Swarm of Flies into him. I heal a couple times in order to heal Sebastian up so that he doesn't die because he's doing a lot of tanking, but unfortunately I catch a fireball in the face from doing this, and I use a couple of potions, so I don't have a ton left either. I see that he's getting a pounding from the Tree Sentinel there, and right before he dies, I go ahead and ultimate so that he is immortal and I'm immortal because I'm still buying time for Fex to get there. So now we got 15 seconds to go ham on this guy. I don't even bother healing even though I have 1 HP. Sebastian unloads into him with the ultimate part. I keep dropping spells into him, and Fex finally shows up and starts unloading to him as well. My immunity part wears off, and I heal up with the 1 potion I have remaining, drop a Warming Stone to do a little bit more healing while I'm dodging attacks from the boss. So at this point, I keep just unloading spells into the boss. I drain my entire FP bar, but because I picked up some Starlight Shards in that rise, I'm able to replenish some FP, so I can keep casting spells. I realize I don't have a summons out anymore at this point, so I get Helen out a little bit later than I should, and that results in me taking a lightning bolt to the face. Little mistake there. So now I have the boss on me, and I'm just trying to stay alive at this point. If you have aggro on the boss when you're playing Revenant, don't try and be that aggressive. Try and stay alive while you can tank, especially if you have other ranged characters that can attack into you. And unfortunately, our Iron Eye finally shows up and takes a lightning bolt to the face immediately, and then I take a fireball to the face not long after, and I have the boss still on me. So I'm just kind of kiting it around, dropping some swarms when I have an opening. I'm not really trying to be super aggressive, and the boss goes down pretty quickly after that. So for rewards, I don't really have anything spellcasting-wise that's particularly great, but there is a Scorpion Stinger, which I pick up because it has Scarlet Rot on it. Everything is pretty much susceptible to Scarlet Rot in this game. Not everything, but just about. And also because it attacks so quickly, I can get those successive attacks to restore HP when using it very effectively. So I decide to pick that up. Then I head to a nearby little site of grace, and there's a house next to it with some seals inside. Neither one is particularly good. I don't need Exike's Decay because I have the Scorpion Stinger, but that spell is a lot of FP for Scarlet Rot anyway, so I'm not sure it's the greatest spell. Dragon spells in general are a lot of FP for very modest damage usually, unless you can get Dragon Claw or Dragon Maw. Those things slap hard. So then we decide to head over to take on Loretta. Our options are kind of limited because of the city map, and Loretta is not necessarily an easy boss by any means, but we decide to head there next. We're thinking we'll take the hippo out in the ravine if there's one, and then take on the dragon after that, also hit the church over there. I decide to stop by the merchant, and I'm pondering leveling up my Clawmark Seal, and the reason I'm pondering it so long is that I'm hoping to get a Holy Seal still. I don't have one yet. We're running out of time. It's not very likely I'm going to get one at this point, so I decided to go ahead and upgrade this, thinking that I'm going to use the lightning spell on it against the final boss, because probably don't have enough time to get a holy spell at this point. So I then finally catch up with Vex not long after that, sitting there trying to decide, got me a little bit behind. She's at Loretta. I summon Sebastian immediately when I get there to help take aggro, but I have to aggro immediately, so I dodge the projectiles, and then I run in and start spamming attacks with the Scorpion Stinger to get Scarlet Rot on her as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, a fucking dog shows up out of nowhere in the middle of this fight and fucking basically gets me killed by Loretta since I'm locked onto it and I can't see what Loretta's doing. But I get picked up almost immediately, so it's not too much of an issue. I then switch to Frederick for my summons because I feel like Sebastian, this boss just keeps moving in and out of range of Sebastian, and I want Frederick to do a little bit of damage. I then start attacking with the Stinger over and over. Scarlet Rot is already on the boss. I'm just trying to deal damage at this point. Then I ultimate really quickly because I'm being so aggressive, I'm afraid of dying. It's a good thing I did because I take a couple blows to the face right after that. And then we just kind of unload into Loretta, and she goes down pretty quickly. And as far as rewards go, there's a couple of weapons I don't really need at this point, so I decided to take the successive attacks, restore HP. I'm using this tiny little dagger anyway. Seems like a good fit. Then head over to the nearest site of grace and level up quickly, and Fex says that she's got a Sword of Night and Flame that she doesn't need. So I'm trying to pick it up, but I get attacked by a random enemy. Luckily, the enemy gives me enough runes to be able to level up again, so I drop the claws and pick up the Sword of Night and Flame. I really don't need the Sword of Night and Flame, because even though the fire aspect would be really strong for me, the final boss that we're doing, Tricephalos, is like really, really strong to fire. So I bring it with me, but I'm going to drop this for Fex a little bit later on, because the magic portion I feel like would be better for her. So then we head over to the hippo in the ravine. I summon Frederick quickly. I start putting out a swarm of flies into the boss, trying to trigger hemorrhage and deal some damage. The boss locks onto me, hits me a couple times, but I got pretty good health, so I don't die. I kind of decide to use Lanciax's glaive, use that on him. It almost one-shots him, and then he dies quickly after that. Taking a look at the rewards, I decide to drop the Sword of Night and Flame first, and then I decide to take the Giant Seal because, lo and behold, I finally get a seal that has a holy spell on it in Black Blade, and that is a devastating spell also, and you're going to see how devastating this is once we get into the Tricephalos fight. I'm at this point regretting upgrading the other seal because I was simply not expecting to get that good of a seal this late in the run, because at this point we basically have half of the last part of day 2 left before we have to face the final boss. So then we head over to a nearby church in order to get a third flask, which is pretty damn good. We had luckily hit like most of all of them, if not all of them, on the map. Kind of naturally, we didn't have to really go out of our way because the dragon boss is not far from here. But there is a dead wilder out front, and he's got some good stuff on him, including a sacred scorpion charm. I picked that up. That's going to be good for Black Blade on the last boss. And he also has some other stuff there, like an Erd Tree's Favor. I decided to keep the Lightning one and that just because I might use the Lightning in between. I thought Erd Tree's Favor would be good for the teammate there, the Iron Eye, or even Fex. And I also pick up the Lord Sword's Sacred Straight Sword. I don't really need this. I actually have a hammer that's got Sacred on it, but I decided to pick it up for some reason and drop the pike. So then we head into the dragon fight, trigger him quickly, and right when he lands, I've got Frederick out, and the Iron Eye actually fires his ult into him, staggering him for a second, which allows me to get enough swings into him to get Scarlet Rot onto him before he lifts off the ground. Then he starts breathing fire everywhere. Luckily, I survived that, and then he flies up onto the cliff. I'm trying to chase after him, and he decides to breathe fire right where I'm going, so I hop back down and re-engage him in the lake. Once I get close to him, I switch to the Lord Sword Straight Sword. Then I switch back once the Scarlet Rot switches off, trying to get it to trigger again. I'm going ham on him. You can see I'm recovering FP, even though I haven't really spent a ton of FP. I'm just spamming R1, trying to get the Scarlet Rot to trigger. And my summons are both down at this point, so I don't even have one, but it's really hard to keep them alive in this fight where the dragon just keeps blowing fire all over them and stomping on them in like one hit. So as I get close, I just keep spamming R1 trying to get that Scarlet Rot on him. I'm not even worried about summoning Sebastian just because there really isn't any need at this point. The dragon's about to die, and he finally does. Good thing, too, because the Nightreign is right there. I pass up on an Erd Tree Seal with Wrath of Gold because I already have Black Blade and decide to take the Poison and Rot. Gives me continuous health recovery because I have a Rot Dagger. And I'm probably going to be setting Rot on the final boss of this day and the next one, which will help keep me alive. So as we head to the end of day area for day 2, there's another Dead Wilder there, and he's got an Anspur Rapier, and our Iron Eye is deliberating like religiously about whether he should take that or not. I'm looking through my gear, getting things set up, seeing what I have, what I don't have. I use every possible second where I have downtime in this game to look at the map, to look at my gear, optimize everything, because you don't want to spend time where you could be moving somewhere doing this. And that's why like I missed a rewards earlier because of speed. So when you have time, take the time to look, and when you don't have time, move. But just don't skip rewards like I did, because that was a mistake. So once the end of day trash shows up, I just start daggering them down. I'm saving my FP for the boss. The dagger is triggering continuous HP recovery from each person I've got Scarlet Rot on, so I'm regenerating HP. I'm just playing aggressively. I'm not even worried about getting hit, honestly. You can see the page starts attacking me, deals damage to me, and I just keep swinging through it because I can regain health from my relic and also from the continuous HP recovery, so it really doesn't matter that much. So when the end of day boss shows up, I don't even have a summons out, which was a mistake. I start throwing lightning glaive down in order to try and AoE them because there's 3 of them. And I get kind of caught in the middle of them. I can't really see what's going on, so I decide to ult. Probably should have had my summons out before I did that. But then I go ahead and find the nearest Royal Cavalryman, start stabbing him, get Scarlet Rot on him, backstab him. Then the other guy's on me. I have 2 Royal guys on me, and then I decide to use the lightning spell again, wipe them out when I create some separation. And I then start focusing on the other one after I have Frederick out. Unfortunately, I get a little too greedy on the Royal Cavalryman. I can see that he's almost dead. The Tree Sentinel's almost dead. I have HP recovery going. I have getting relic back, health after taking damage going, so I was thinking I could just tank through it, but I don't, and I get res pretty quickly thereafter by my own summons, which is one of the nice things about Revenant when that does happen. And then looking at the end of day bosses, improved physical attack power is not particularly good for me. I don't really like the other one, so I decide to take the damage negation from Affinity, like if the Tricephalos boss is breathing fire on me, that could protect me from that, so this is not terrible for me, but it's not the greatest bonus. So then in the end of day area, I level up once really quickly. I have a lot of stuff left. I buy Starlight Shards. You always want to buy Starlight Shards when you're playing a Revenant for the final boss. Try and get people to buy you Starlight Shards if possible. I buy everything I basically can. And then I really regret that I used my stone to upgrade the Lightning Glaive seal, because now I have Black Blade. However, Fex has an extra stone that she doesn't need, so I'm still able to upgrade it anyway, getting even more damage on Black Blade going into this fight. So when the fight starts, I get Frederick out quickly. Frederick is pretty much the default summons, I think. Unless you're like soloing or you know a boss is going to be stationary a lot, you can use Sebastian. But the boss is on me pretty quickly. I'm just kind of tanking him around, letting them range into him. Remember, when you have other players that can range, if someone's like a boss is on you, you don't have to attack very often. You can just stay alive. I wait for my opening and I start going to town with Black Blade and the follow-up. Then I start attacking with the dagger to try and get some Scarlet Rot build up on him, and I hit him a few times, but I don't quite get it. My summons goes down to the Tail Whip, so I decide to summon Helen, because she's very fast and mobile. That should be able to keep up with him. I then get a couple more Black Blades into him, and he splits apart into 3. And, you know, usually this is the hard part of the boss fight, so I buff up with some items and drop a Warming Stone there, replenish with Shard, kind of waiting for my opportunity to attack. I look for it, and then I go ham with Black Blade. And one of the great things about Black Blade, too, which you'll see in a second, is that it can clip through multiple of these bosses. It's also debuffing them with the holy damage. I get in the middle of a bunch of them, and I decide to ultimate, give myself 15 seconds and everyone else 15 seconds of immortality. I then hit with a couple more Black Blades and get rammed in the face. But I'm immortal, so I can't die, and I back away and heal up, waiting for another opportunity to go ham with Black Blade. You can see I got them lined up here, and I'm just hitting them in a row with Black Blade, just dealing tons of damage, and they go down very, very quickly after that. So that wraps up our Revenant video. I hope this video helped you. This Revenant is a very interesting class, because I feel you can build her in so many different ways. You could try to go for a pure spellcaster, if you can take relics that boost a certain type of spell, and hope you get it in a run. But I play her in a very much way where it doesn't really matter what I get, I can still be successful. So I hope you got something out of this, and as always, if you have other tips, things that I should have done that I didn't do, or things that I didn't do that I should have done, you can leave them in the comments, or if you have questions about this run, you can leave them there as well, and I will try and get back to you as soon as I can.
We'll be right back.